Hey folks, so when I first started seriously making paper computer games years ago, this was my second game, and let me just tell you, the art was terrible. I've showed you this game before, but I'll just briefly look at it. You can't even, really see what this is on its own merits. Over here you can kind of see characters, but they're absolute minimalist, no detail, they're just pretty much stick figures. You can't even really tell this one apart from that one. Some are too small or too big. I don't know what that thing is. I do know what that is, but you don't, because you don't know this game. And that's the thing about the art in my early paper computer games. You have to know. You can't just, look at the art and get a sense of, you can get sort of a sense of what's going on, but not really that much. Let's look at this screen right here. I couldn't make this as a drawing on its own. You can't figure out what this means. Oh, okay, let me tell you. This area right over here, this is supposed to be like a cornfield, and over here in the middle of it is a crop circle, but you don't really get that just by looking at this. This just looks like schmutz all over the screen. These games, despite this terrible art, I continued making them because people continued playing them. These games inspired Keith and Kurt to start making their own series of games. They inspired Pierre to make her own series of games, which are some of the most gorgeously drawn paper computer games that have ever been made. So, why did this inspire them if the art was so bad? The reason is because paper computer games are not about the art. When you come into this screen, yeah, you don't know what everything is, and that's okay. The point of it isn't to be a pretty picture. The point of it, it's a game. You want to explore the game, so your imagination fills in the blanks. But not just your imagination. That's part of the fun of a paper computer game, is that you're playing with a person. They ask questions about the world. Let's say I'm playing with someone, that the player says, okay, so what's that? I say, okay, those are your characters. They say, okay, well, what are these lines over here? I'm going to say, okay, well, these are about 10-foot tall walls. This is sort of looking downward. And, as I describe, as I answer her questions about the world, your imagination kind of fills this in. You sort of start to understand it. So the art isn't just the art. The paper computer game is as much about your own imagination and exploring this universe you create as it is about the art itself. So that's why when I made this game, I didn't really care about the art. I was proud of this at the time, not because of the art, but because I created, a world and a story, and I wanted to build on it. And I've been building on these games ever since. I should just note at this point that I didn't create this universe. These games were already built on Chris's games, which also featured very simple art. They had, stick figures and such, but they were amazing. They hooked me. They got me into paper computer games, and that is when I started drawing. The other thing I wanted to mention is that this other guy, Soaps, he just made a video recently, which inspired me to make this video. And his point was that if you're making art just for the sake of drawing something, you can be discouraged because you don't think that your art is good. You might just be like, well, other people are better, and it's taking me too long to get good. But that's when you're just drawing for the sake of drawing. If you're drawing to make a paper computer game, it's totally different, because you're drawing for a purpose. In the case of a paper computer game, the art is just there so you have a bare bones idea of what this world looks like, and then you can ask questions about it. What's this door over here? What are these things across the door? Yeah, I can say, okay, that's a force field. And your imagination fills in, and the more questions you ask about it, the more, the better this art is going to look to your eyes. Even though it actually looks terrible, your brain works more with the imagination than it works with what it exactly sees. Everything you see, your brain is filling in the blanks. And paper computer games are the best example of that. And the thing is, because you can get past that hump of thinking you aren't good at drawing, and you keep drawing because you need to finish the next game, to finish the next story, the more you do it, your art gets better. it gets you to draw in a way that you're not worried about how good your art is. Your art is there to show you, you know, it's there to serve a purpose. It's not there to look pretty on its own merits. And as you get better, your art will naturally get to the point where it does look pretty for its own merits. I'm going to show you, like, okay, let me just say that my art still sucks, but I'm going to show you some of my later games to see, so you can see my progression over time. This is sort of like, this one was called Chrome Training the New Recruit. This is kind of like just a mini game, and this thing right over here, I thought this was pretty cool. Like, this I was proud of on its own merits, just as a drawing. If I had just drawn this in a sketchbook with not as a part of anything, I would have thought this was pretty cool. I mean, it's not the greatest thing in the world. It's pretty simplistic. It's just, you know, mostly just lines and a little simple shading, and that's pretty much it. But, you know, I just really like it. It's expressive and it's cool, and it's the kind of thing I like to draw. But, see, the only reason I got here is because I made paper computer games all the time, and I got better and better. Over here we have Pokemon Stop, which you might have seen some of my videos on. And, like, these, you know, to be fair, I mean, for me, this would be a pretty good drawing, but, like, this is just copied from, like, looking at different, you know, like, this is obviously copied from a picture of Ash, this is from a picture of BB-8, but you can see that that at the time I made this game, I couldn't have drawn anything like this, even copying. It wouldn't have been possible. And here's some of the screens I did not copying. You know, still not great. It's pretty simple, but, you know, I like the way it looks a lot more. I'm more comfortable drawing characters in. So, that's my main point to you guys. Paper computer games are not about the art. If your art isn't so great, even better, because paper computer games, like, they thrive on the imagination, not on the art. That is a big part of paper computer games, and always has been. It's always been about, you know, I mean, even if my art was perfect, I'd always want to leave some stuff to the imagination. Look at this screen right over here. I mean, I could have drawn out every detail on this, you know, overhead maze screen, but instead I made it the camera pretty far out, made it pretty vague, and that way the player has a lot to ask about. You know, what's over here? What's this? What's that? They have a lot of world to explore. So that's the point I wanted to make to you guys today. You should try doing that in your own paper computer games. Thanks for watching, folks.